The Halo series has always been very special for me. I haven't actually made a video on Halo before, but Halo was the first FPS shooter I'd ever played, and I believe the first M-rated game I ever played as a kid. I mostly played a lot of Halo 3, Reach, and Halo 4. I did play a decent amount of Halo 5, but I didn't like that one as much, and I haven't really played Halo since. I had pretty much lost interest in the series for several years, but then Halo Infinite came out and it has reignited my passion for the series once again. Halo Infinite, I feel, is not only the game this series needed, but also the game that this community needed. In a year where many games have disappointed and been released unfinished, and with all the hate surrounding these big AAA studios, Halo Infinite came in and showed them how it's all done. Delaying the game a year proved to be a genius decision. The game is very polished, and I can't even recall a major bug during my time with the game. It goes to show when studios take more time with the game and iron out all the issues, it not only makes a better game, but it also gains the respect of the fans and community. So Halo Infinite is definitely the game we needed this year, and it's still missing some pretty big features that are coming next year, like co-op and campaign and the Forge, which is a bummer. But again, if 343 feels they need to delay it to make it as good as possible, then I'm all for that. Now in this video, I'm going to go over my honest thoughts and review of Halo Infinite's campaign, and I'm going to talk a little about the multiplayer as one big package, and let you guys know if I recommend it. Halo Infinite's story takes place about 3 years after the events of Halo 5's incredibly messy campaign. The premise and introduction to the game is really cool, albeit a little confusing, especially for someone who hasn't played Halo in a while. Essentially though, Master Chief and UNSC are nearly wiped out by the new enemy, the Banished, and their leader Atriox, as Master Chief is knocked off the Infinity and floats through space for months before he's discovered by a UNSC pilot, Echo 216. The Banished are led by evil bad guy antagonist dude Escharum. Escharum at first may seem like a really shallow villain who kind of just yells and acts intimidating. There's a little more depth to him though. Admittedly, still not a lot, and he can still be a fairly shallow bad guy. However, he wants to honor the memory of Atriox and lead the Banished into a new age free of humans and all other species. Master Chief, aware of this, immediately gets back into the fight and goes to Zeta Halo to stop the Banished and save the human race. His companions are the pilot, Echo 216, who often whines about just wanting to survive and go home. Like, come on, man, Master Chief needs to shoot some aliens, and here you are whining about wanting to see your family. Yeah, whatever, loser. There's also the Weapon, Master Chief's new AI companion, who's meant to fill the role left by Cortana, and there's a whole mystery involving the Weapon and how she came to be that you'll slowly unravel throughout the story. Her and Master Chief make a pretty entertaining duo, and there's some good dialogue and emotion between the two as they learn to trust one another. Master Chief is of course his usual badass self, well, except for that one time. But I love how they decided to keep the original voice actors. I also noticed Master Chief being a little more comedic in this game. He has this really dry sense of humor that I found pretty funny. And all things considered, I think the story did a decent job of cleaning up Halo 5's mess and explaining a lot of things, even if some of it is still pretty vague. However, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the characters and story moments being revealed through audio logs, but I get it, and it sort of adds to that mystery element of the game. This story in a lot of ways almost felt like a soft reboot to me. There's a different tone and feel to the story in Infinite, but in a refreshing way, and it left me excited for the future of the series and where they go from here.
I will stop you!
343 really nailed the gameplay in Infinite. The movement and gunplay just feel so good. It's like the perfect balance of the old Bungie games and something a little fresh and modern with the sprinting, sliding, and the big addition of the grappling hook. The grappling hook was probably one of, if not my favorite new feature, made traversing the big open world so much fun. You can climb large mountains and structures with it, use it to evade enemies or quickly escape an area when low on health, or if you need to put some distance between yourself and the banished enemies, which was a lifesaver, especially in the boss fights. Not to mention, it has its own upgrade tree where you can reduce the cooldown, electrocute enemies with it, and even perform a special melee attack. You can also use it to pick up weapons and equipment. You can grapple coils, grab them, and chuck them at enemies. It's all just so satisfying and adds another element to the gameplay loop. The gunplay also feels great. Accuracy and where you hit enemies is extremely important. I also like the visual indications on some of them where you can knock off their helmets or pieces of their armor to get some visual feedback of the damage you're dealing. There's a great amount of variety in the weapons, especially with all the new weapon types added in this game with different tiers and variants of each weapon, adding for a lot of depth and choice when it comes to your loadout. There's also a fair amount of new enemy types in Infinite, each with different styles, armor, and weapons, and each having different weak spots to be exploited. Your other abilities, aside from the grappling hook, include a sensor dart you can shoot to scan all enemies within its range, a deployable shield that absorbs all incoming damage that you can still shoot out of, and a thruster that allows you to evade in different directions, all of which have their own upgrades and improvements you can unlock with Spartan cores. Obviously, the biggest change to Halo Infinite's campaign is that it's now open world. I don't really think anyone thought this was a necessary change, but it works surprisingly well. In fact, the most fun I had with this game was doing all the side quests and activities and exploring and traversing the open world. Now, the open world itself isn't anything innovative for the genre. It's a pretty standard open world where you have your small activities like taking out propaganda towers or finding Spartan cores you can use for upgrades in the world, along with a lot of the audio logs. There's then the bigger side quests where you have to infiltrate a stronghold and complete a variety of tasks. There's your outposts or fobs that you can clear out and claim for yourself. You can save marine squads being held captive or fighting the banished, and you can kill high value banished targets to unlock some special weapons. Again, it's not exactly anything innovative, but it works really well and can be quite addicting just exploring and completing all the side stuff, and you're well rewarded from it too. You get really strong weapons from killing high value targets. You get a fast travel point in an area where you can call in vehicles or pick up your unlocked weapons at a fob, along with getting some AI marine companions to help you out. You can get Spartan cores for upgrades, and you get multiplayer cosmetics from the Mjolnir armories scattered across the world, which is really cool. You earn valor from completing side quests or destroying propaganda towers, which allows you to unlock more vehicles, weapons, and AI marines at your fobs. The open world stuff can be a little repetitive and checklisty, but the reward and incentive is strong enough, and the gameplay systems are more than satisfying enough to keep you wanting to complete every side objective you can, and it's very easy to sink lots of hours into. Unfortunately, there isn't really any environmental variety in the world, which a lot of people have been complaining about. However, I really love the verticality of the world. It keeps it interesting, and the traversal is so much fun with the grappling hook, and it gets even better when you unlock the Wasp in your fob and can just fly across the world. The ground vehicles, however, are a little more difficult to drive, especially with the terrain and verticality of the world, paired with the fact that the vehicles flip over way too easily in my opinion. If anything though, I'd say it's the indoor linear main missions that felt a little boring to me. There's not a lot of variety or freedom within the missions, and it's a lot of finding batteries to open doors or activate lifts, which just isn't that much fun. I did really like the boss fights, and those had some decent variety. I just wish there was a little more variety in terms of the location of the boss fights, as some of them looked very similar. Halo Infinite's multiplayer is also a huge refresher. Again, they really nailed the movement and gunplay, which alone makes multiplayer feel really good. Not to mention the fact that this multiplayer is free, which already makes it stand out from other online multiplayer shooters like Call of Duty and Battlefield, and makes it a great option for anyone. It was a really smart idea to have it as free to play, as it'll keep new players coming and hopefully keep the game alive, so that it's not only just the pros and tryhards still playing. Plus, it's crossplay, so you can play with your friends regardless if they have an Xbox or PC. Most people's major complaints with the multiplayer are the battle pass and progression, and the inability to choose your game mode, which was just fixed in in a recent update where they added a bunch of new multiplayer modes like free-for-all and tactical slayer. They also now let you choose which specific game mode you would like to play. And as for the battle pass, I get why they went for this system. Since it's free to play, it's more justifiable, but obviously as of right now, it's a little too much, because if you don't have the battle pass, then it takes ages to get any new gear or customization. However, 343 has already confirmed they will be making changes to progression, and they've already made quite a lot, including a complete overhaul to how the challenges work, which just goes to show that 343 is listening to their community, which is a great sign for the future of multiplayer. Halo Infinite may not be the best looking game I've played this year, but it still looks clean. Even on low settings, this game still looks really good. Performance was kind of odd at first though. It's gotten better since the game has fully launched, but there's some weird issues on PCs and for certain hardware. Like for example, at first I was getting around 95 FPS in multiplayer, which isn't low or anything. I'm not going to complain about that, but considering my PC specs and the fact I was on low settings, I felt like it should have been higher, especially comparing it to what others were getting. My game was also crashing a lot, which I eventually learned was because I had high-res textures installed, which once I got rid of, I got a huge bump to an average of about 125 to 130 FPS in multiplayer. And my game stopped crashing, of course. I still think there's some weird issues with this game and RTX cards, specifically the 30 series I've heard, but I trust they'll get better with updates. On the campaign in the open world, I was getting around 90 to 100 FPS, while in the indoor sections, it was about 140 to 150 FPS. So if you'd like to use that for reference to try and determine what your PC will run the game at, go ahead. Halo Infinite for many people and fans is a major refresher for the Halo series. I hadn't been interested in Halo in years, and after this game it makes me want to go back and play the Master Chief Collection again, so who knows, maybe I'll make a video on that in the future. But the campaign was a lot of fun, a decent story, an addicting open world formula, and extremely satisfying gameplay. And there's of course the free multiplayer that was a blast as well, especially with friends. Obviously co-op and the Forge are big features currently missing, but when they finally do arrive, it'll be well worth the wait. Plus, it'll give us something to look forward to with the future of this game. So, I definitely recommend Halo Infinite. If you were hoping to play co-op with some friends, then I recommend just waiting to get the campaign until May when it comes out. But other than that, I encourage you to try the game for yourself. I mean, multiplayer is free, so why not? And maybe it'll help you decide whether or not you want to try the campaign as well. If you guys enjoyed this review of Halo Infinite, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on the video and consider subscribing to the channel if you're new here. I make a lot of reviews on my channel. I have a whole playlist called Should You Buy if you'd like to check that out. But other than that, thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day, everybody.